what is clear to everybody, apart from the Labour government, is that we do need a proper public inquiry to get to the bottom of the truth behind this, so lessons can be learned and those people who are guilty of covering this up can be brought to justice.
Okay, the good news continues. We are back in the UK this week, as I've said in other videos, which I'm doing this week. We are taking a look at the UK, where a lot is going on. And there is a connection with what's going on in the United States and, of course, with what's going on in other countries in Western Europe that have been subjected to mass migration for decades. So specifically, there's a big scandal in the UK about what they call grooming gangs. This is a euphemism for basically child... what do we call them? Child sexualization rape gangs, something like that. Rape gangs in which the perpetrators are almost 100% Pakistanis, Muslim Pakistanis who live in England, various parts of England. And the victims are all young, barely teenage, 11, 12, 13-year-old white English girls, specifically white English girls who have been abused by these serial sexual abusers, running gangs of them in England. And this has been going on, well, it has been going on for maybe at least 20 years. And a man named Tommy Robinson in the UK has been blowing the whistle about this, been talking about it for, going on 20 years. And has been persecuted mightily for his pains. But just in the last day or so, Elon Musk tweeted out, "Free Tommy Robinson." Tommy Robinson, by the way, is now in jail in the UK on the charge of contempt of court. And I don't know how valid that charge is or not. Regardless, even if he is in contempt of court, he has been blowing the whistle on these migrant rape gangs for, about 20 years and been persecuted for it. But Elon Musk, probably in an attempt to deflect from his meltdown, anti-American meltdown over Christmas, has now taken to talking about the problems in Europe, which that doesn't take away from the bad things about Elon Musk and what he's saying about your American workers, but we'll take the good when it comes. And if Elon Musk is shining the spotlight on the major problems in Europe that the mainstream media will not cover and that the establishment politicians ignore, then that is a good thing. So let's get into it. Elon Musk is weighing in on politics. He thinks that the political party in the UK that can handle or, can lead the UK out of this situation is the Reform Party led by Nigel Farage. But just today or yesterday, Musk also, in one of his tweet storms, tweeted that Nigel Farage doesn't have what it takes to lead reform. So it's a big mess, but we are living in interesting times. So let's get into the video.
Political romance is over. Before Christmas, Nigel Farage posed with Elon Musk at Donald Trump's Florida estate.
That's Nigel Farage on the right, by the way, for those of you who have no idea about what's going on in the UK.
With Reform UK's treasurer, Nick Candy, in front of a portrait of America's next president. There were rumours the world's richest man might bankroll reform. But Nigel Farage's mistake, it seems, was not backing Elon Musk all the way after his incendiary attacks on the government over historic child grooming scandals. The owner of X suggested Keir Starmer failed to pursue rapists when chief...
Oh, here we go. So Elon Musk tweeting out memes. This one is with Keir Starmer. And so Elon Musk writes, "This meme is actually real in the UK. I would be surprised if this meme is not even illegal in the UK, frankly." So the first one, you can read what it says. Charge people for rape and violent crime. And the second one, where he's looking happy, charge people for social media posts and memes. Yes, exactly. That is actually happening in the UK.
Crown prosecutor, and promoted a video of jailed far-right campaigner Tommy Robinson. Nigel Farage said about Elon Musk,
"The fact that he supports me politically and supports reform doesn't mean I have to agree with every single statement he makes on X. I think I've made it perfectly clear that I don't agree with everything he stands for, but I do believe in free speech. I think he's a hero."
But it seems that wasn't enough for Elon Musk. When he woke up stateside, he turned on Nigel Farage, saying the Reform Party needs a new leader. Farage doesn't have what it takes. Elon Musk's new favourite seems to be Tommy Robinson, who used to head the English Defence League, whom he says was put in prison for telling the truth about Britain. He was actually jailed for contempt of court.
We make Britain great again!
Nigel Farage, who's in the middle of a series of rallies, has said Elon Musk's broadside is a surprise. He's a remarkable individual, he said, but Tommy Robinson is not right for reform. Never mind that he says he's never asked to join the party, although some of its members are supporters of his. The government too is having to deal with Elon Musk's current obsession with British politics, specifically his criticism of the records of the Prime Minister and Jess Phillips and his call for a public inquiry into child sexual exploitation.
We've had an independent inquiry on child sexual exploitation. Not a single one of those recommendations was implemented by the last government. We are determined to implement those recommendations. And when it comes to the Prime Minister, our Victims Minister Jess Phillips, these are people who in their professional lives outside politics have put more rapists, wife beaters and paedophiles behind bars than their critics could ever do.
The previous Conservative government also declined to lead an investigation into grooming in Oldham, but the party is now calling for a national inquiry.
Yeah, so the Conservative government and the previous Conservative government and the current Labour government and all governments before them have been completely ignoring the situation, even though it's impossible to ignore. But they managed to, and so did the establishment media. Absolutely sickening.
What is clear to everybody, apart from the Labour government, is that we do need a proper public inquiry to get to the bottom of the truth behind this, so lessons can be learned and those people who are guilty of covering this up can be brought to justice.
Elon Musk has power and influence and did have a soft spot for Nigel Farage. But in the end, his intervention in UK politics put pressure on the relationship, and it could be the end of the affair.
Jane Deeth reporting. Well, earlier I spoke to Mark Owen Jones, who's an Associate Professor of Media Analytics at Northwestern University in Qatar and an expert on disinformation. I began by asking, with Musk turning his fire on Nigel Farage after days of attacking Keir Starmer, what's going on?
Well, you might argue it's the snake eating its tail. I think Elon Musk is slightly upset, perhaps, that Farage didn't completely endorse Musk's support for Tommy Robinson, who, as everyone knows, is a far-right anti-Islam activist. And Elon Musk seems to support Tommy Robinson quite a lot. And Farage has been sort of more reluctant to embrace Tommy Robinson. And it seems that Musk really wants to sort of encourage the kind of far-right politics in Europe that is very potently, not just anti-migrant and anti-immigrant, but anti-Muslim. And I think Tommy Robinson embodies that. And so whilst Farage is probably seething deep down, I'm sure he knows that if he engages in a feud with Musk, that might sort of burn bridges with Musk, might prevent the possibility of getting a lot of money to reform, and ultimately burn an important bridge with Donald Trump. Let's not forget that Farage is trying to position himself as a link between the UK and the US and talking about how he can perhaps facilitate a trade deal.
Why do you think that Musk is going about this in this way? Why do you think he's posting more, getting more stridently involved in other countries' politics?
I think there's a number of things at play. I think, one, Musk is himself an ambitious person, not just in terms of his commercial and economic projects, but I think his taste of notoriety, especially through social media, and then his subsequent buying of X, has given him a taste for political power. And if you look at Musk's tweets over the lifetime, you can see that increasingly he's tweeting more. His tweets are getting more neurotic, more political. So I think increasingly Musk is showing himself to have been, I argue, radicalized by his own platform and by his own fame.
Well, he would call himself a free speech absolutist. I do wonder what his end game is, what his strategy is to fire off all of these different tweets.
There's a number of things that I think are at stake here. You could argue that his backing of Trump was to hopefully win power, and that was a bet that would basically allow Musk to essentially get rid of all the legal cases against his companies. I think there's a lot to be said for power and impunity. Let's not forget that he's endorsed Trump and Tommy Robinson, both of whom well, Trump's a felon, a convicted felon. Tommy Robinson's in prison. And I think for someone like Musk, he sees his influence and the access to power as a form of impunity, which for him means that as long as he's in power or attached to power or has the ability to influence politics, he is essentially untouchable.
But will he have that power if he falls out with President-elect Trump?
The question is, if he does fall out with Trump, yes, Trump is the president, argument more powerful, but I think Musk has the ego and the level of narcissism that he might start to eventually see himself as a sort of person who could even rival Trump. Think of Icarus. Icarus was ambitious and flew too close to the sun. That could be Musk. He could play with fire, incur Trump's wrath, and then lose grace. Or, the way Musk sees it, he might be able to actually position himself in a way that he might make Trump look bad.
And just finally, I wanted to ask you about Musk's influence on the world in general. Should there be stronger sanctions against someone like Musk being able to post what he's posting?
As Musk demonstrates himself to be someone engaged in often what we criticize other countries of, like Russia, foreign interference, which is essentially what he's doing, the governments might have no choice but to take more punitive measures. We have to take the platform from under him. And I also think as a society, yes, government needs to take measures, but we have to wonder now as news organizations and politicians, to what extent now should we be using X or endorsing X if that's a platform owned by someone who is essentially trying to undermine British democracy? I think that's another question we have to ask ourselves.
Well, very interesting comments from the mainstream media and their sycophants. So yeah, as the interviewer asked, she said, should we take punitive action against Musk? Well, for what? For talking about British politics? Is that interference in British politics? If, everyday people talk about British politics every single day. Are they interfering in British politics? Foreign politicians talk about British politics, often. Are they interfering? Politicians from various European countries or from America. Trump might talk about British politics. Are they interfering? Is that interference in British politics? Is it interference if Putin talks about British politics? Is it interference if a rich, insanely, spectacularly wealthy non-politician, businessman like Elon Musk talks about British politics? Is that interference? Well, he certainly has influence. He's got a microphone. He's got a platform. He's got all that. Is that interference? It brings up a lot of questions, and I think it's clear. It's certainly very clear. Whatever you think of Musk. Now, Musk lost a lot of goodwill over the Christmas holiday. For those of you who followed it, he and Vivek Ramaswamy just basically insulted America and American workers and told them that they need to be replaced by Indians, basically. That's, in the end, that's what it boils down to. Because they didn't have the work ethic or the brains to do the jobs, that Indians will do. I will talk about this in more detail I already have talked about this in more detail in other videos, so you can check those out. But, so, Musk and Vivek lost a lot of credibility in doing that. And I personally think Musk is now trying to deflect, from his meltdown. And he is an interesting character. I don't really like to do what this guy did and say, well, he's a narcissist or he's neurotic or, try to give a psychological breakdown. I have no idea what Musk is. But yeah, he was acting like a petulant child over the Christmas break. Absolutely. Now, is talking about British politics, is that acting like a petulant child or a neurotic narcissist? Not necessarily. I don't think so. Depends what he goes on to say. And of course the British media and the British political establishment do not want anybody of influence promoting somebody like Tommy Robinson. For them, in their view, Tommy Robinson is the scum of the earth. No doubt about it. He is the absolute scum of the earth. And I don't think, frankly, he probably wouldn't make a good politician. Talk about radioactive. He's not that kind of person. He's an activist, in my view. But who knows? Things are changing, which is good. Because, in my opinion, from what I've seen over the last 10 years, at least 20 years, the UK has just been descending into an ever more dire situation. I mean, it's happening across Europe, Western Europe too, don't get me wrong. Same thing is happening where I live, in Belgium. And it's happening in the United States, perhaps in a different way. It's happening in Canada. And a lot of this, basically, a lot of it comes down to mass migration of non-Europeans to European countries. Yeah, and no, it's not racist to talk about that, but European countries should remain European, quite simply. Say 95% European, 90% at the worst, I would say. Same with the countries founded by Europeans. You know, the Anglosphere countries, United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Ireland, South Africa. You know, good luck with that. That's a different context, different situation there. But you get the idea. Countries founded by Europeans should also remain overwhelmingly European. That's just the way it is. Europeans build European societies and countries. Non-Europeans don't. They build different kinds of societies and countries and civilizations. Nothing wrong with that. That's what diversity is, actually, by the way. If I go to Japan, I don't want to feel like I don't want to land in Japan and walk around and just feel like I'm in New York City or London or Brussels or wherever. I want to feel like I'm in Japan, a different place. Same thing if I go to Uganda. I don't want to have some homogenized global experience, you know, where everything's more or less the same as everywhere else. Who wants that? Or same if you go to India. You know, I personally wouldn't have no desire to go to India, but plenty of people do. But you wouldn't want it to be like Europe or Asia or Africa. You'd want it to be like India. It's a very simple concept. Yeah, and you wouldn't want, you know, you wouldn't insist that India import hundreds of millions of Europeans, or did Japan import hundreds of millions of Europeans or Africans or whatever. No. They're perfectly right to keep their countries the way they are. Yeah, absolutely. But some of them are under pressure. And certainly the European countries where, let's face it, that's where the vast majority of migrants want to go, is the European countries or to the countries founded by Europeans, such as Canada, United States, Australia. That's where they want to go. And it's not just that they want to go there and they just happening to show up. They are being encouraged and allowed to come en masse. And not only does it cause social problems, it causes housing problems, causes intense pressure on public services. It causes social discord and breakdown of community feeling between people who are similar to each other that you had before. It causes all sorts of problems. And there's no reason at all to accept it. So despite my misgivings about what Musk did over Christmas, I am glad that he's giving a platform to these big problems, specifically in the UK. And as this guy said, he also mentioned Germany. He's been promoting the AfD, the so-called far-right extremist party in Germany, which it also is completely demonized by the establishment media and the establishment political parties. So very interesting times. If you've listened this far, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I believe these are important times for, patriots of European countries and countries founded by Europeans. Absolutely. These are very important times. Things hopefully are changing, but this will take time, it will take effort, and we must keep pushing. When the opponent is on the back foot, you have to keep pushing. Push. So, please, if you like this kind of content, like and subscribe. Feel free to leave comments. I read every comment, and I reply to quite a few. If you have something negative to say about, if you disagree with what I'm saying, feel free to comment. Keep it respectful. I've engaged in respectful dialogue back and forth with people with commenters who have disagreed with what I said. I don't mind that at all, but I won't engage with trolls. So keep it respectful, keep it real, and we can all move forward and improve things for everybody. So thanks again, and I will see you in the next video.